Welcome to ISE 2023 in lovely Barcelona. This is Rich Fregosa, Uncle Richie with AVNation.tv. I'm actually getting an opportunity just a short 8 months later to be in the studio with Paul Dexter, who is the founder of Jetbuilt. It's good to see you.
Well, good to see you too. And it is funny how it's only been 8 months.
Well, it was amazing that we had a moment just before we were recording that. When we had our first interview, it was our first time meeting.
Right.
My first question was, we had just come out of COVID. Mm-hmm. The show was opening. We'd already been postponed. And kind of the question on all of our minds was like, what are we going to expect? What's happening? And it's like, how are we going to make it through? Fast forward. Yeah. We're kind of back on track. Yeah. We've had a couple hours. We're recording on the first day. Right. How does it feel now in 2023? On the regular schedule, and what's your feel of the show so far?
Well, excuse me. Yeah, the show is humongous again, right? That's the thing I keep thinking. And for us, obviously we all did 2020 in February, right before the world shut down in Amsterdam, and then we actually did that crazy 2021 show here when they had like 1/8 or 1/10 of the hall open, and we were one of like 50 people showing. We were eager to just keep trying, right? And then, of course, last year, they postponed it from February to May or whatever it was. And it felt big again, but it wasn't this big, right? For example, this morning, I come down the elevator, got to drop something off here in the press room, so I had to leave the hall at 11 o'clock, but then I had to get back in the hall at 11 o'clock. That's like an hour and a half to get back in the hall. So instead I went and got a cappuccino and waited. But
called it a day.
I called it a day. It's like, I'm going home. But it was crazy. So it's just really exciting to be really all the way back. All the shows have been coming back, but this it's fun. It's great because everybody's here. All the faces that have been staying away, now everybody's back together. So it's a great show. It's fun.
This is a technology show. Obviously, we're technology focused. You're a technology company. When we were talking in the summer, one of the questions was, coming into the show. One of the things that's been really interesting to me, especially with this show, now that we're back together, is that, we do talk about the technology, but these companies are made of people. And everybody has a story that kind of develops who they are and where they get to in this industry, because very rarely do people, choose that I'm going to be in this industry. We'll all find our ways here by happenstance. One of my first questions was like, how did you find yourself in AV, and how did you find yourself, creating Jetbuilt? What was the story? Because when we're on the trade show floor, we're always talking about the stuff. Yeah. But we don't often talk about why we're doing what we do and what led us here in the first place. So I just want to take a minute and just kind of figure out, how did you get here at this point?
Well, it's a great question. I love telling the story because it's a like you said, everybody's story into AV is different and unique, because it's not like, I'm going to be a lawyer, or I'm going to get into this or this or this. It's like, it's this little industry. It's a fun, tight community. And yet it's off of a lot of people's radar. And there are a lot of musicians. A lot of people I meet, I played guitar, and then I learned how to wrap cables. The next thing I know, I was hanging speakers. And it's a little bit of my story, because I call myself a rock star, but I was a fledgling rock star. Our band got signed, and we put a couple of records out and so forth. But then I settled into record production, and that's where I really had my success, as it were. Grammy nominated for albums that I did and so forth. So I had a good run producing albums, and that was like 90s into the 2000s. But then I got married, and a record producer life is, working in the studio until the sun comes up or whatever. So it's not really a family life. And so I got married in 2003, and it was extremely hard on our marriage. So I wound up just like, what? I've been doing that a long time. Interestingly enough, a church asked me to look at their sound system they just put in, and it had all these issues, and I knew obviously how to get good sound. So I remodeled the system, and it was a real emerging church in Southern California. So churches were sending their people to that church to experience what they do, but then also the sound. So who did this? So next thing I know, I start getting calls from churches all over Southern California, but even the country. And so I start putting systems in and I was an AV outsider. I had no idea AV, and I'm buying stuff at Guitar Center originally, right? And then I start realizing the integration kind of way, and so I grew up a legitimate integration company focused on fine arts, house of worship, rock and roll systems, But then we got into conferencing and various things, but. Along that way, I'm looking for a software to do the projects, to populate the projects, create the proposals, and run the projects. And there's always been a few that came along in the early '90s, a few platforms. But I needed to collaborate. I needed my remote team to be able to collaborate. And I was a Mac user. I couldn't use these Windows applications, and these companies were sending, in the mid 2015, sending DVDs with the install discs. I'm going, this is a new era, and so me and a few other integration buddies were talking to these vendors, saying, can you make a cloud? Can you modernize? It could be new again? Because they innovated in the '90s, but they just forgot to keep doing it, and they honestly pushed back. And I'm talking generically, not a specific one. But it's odd. It's like last year we got news. One of them, or just a few months ago, they're shutting down. And they were the one that said, no, we'll never go cloud. Then here they are 6 years later, shutting down, and others are now. Have instance gone cloud and kind of chasing what we pioneered. But I really think all they needed to do was listen to the integrators, because a lot of integrators were crying out for it. And so I wouldn't have done Jetbuilt had these other software vendors listen to the integrators. And so what that is, it's a little bit like maybe Elon Musk wouldn't be making Teslas if Ford and Chevy hadn't killed the electric car in the '90s, right? So not that I can compare with an Elon Musk, or nowadays who wants to, maybe, I don't know. But the point is, on my little level, I wouldn't be here. I didn't necessarily ask for this. I didn't desire to be here, but it needed to be done, and clearly that demand has been huge among integrators, and beyond that. So that's my story, getting into AV and then getting into software. But beyond that, now we're just really excited because that cloud technology and the ecosystem of users, not both, but 5 groups of users in Jetbuilt. These integrators, end users, a lot of universities, theme parks, hospitals, and so forth, corporations using Jetbuilt to populate their projects. And then self-build, send RFPs or whatever, and then manufacturers, distributors, consultants, everybody using Jetbuilt. Is that, our big theme for this year is that we're bridging the silos. So these 5 silos, these 5 groups that have had to work separately all this time. An end user who spins something up, but then what they have to do, they have to print it out or do something to get it to an integrator to start getting a price on it, or a consultant to finish designing it up and engineering it so they can start getting prices. And inside of Jetbuilt, it's a push a button and everybody's collaborating on these projects. And of course, everybody's, people are clearly making money off all of these parties. The manufacturers are making their money, the distributors are making their money, the consultants, the integrators, and yet everybody can work harmoniously in Jetbuilt, and each able to do their job, have their own margins and so forth, but really collaborate on projects, And I'm talking about an end user collaborating with a manufacturer to say, here's what I want to do. I've got these 10 floors and I've got these conference systems I need to go in. I think this is the right stuff. Then the manufacturer goes, you know what, that's pretty great. Thanks for letting us know about it. Let me help you finish putting that together. You got the wrong processors here, and then these speakers aren't, you'd probably be better to go, AV over IP or whatever it may be. They can help these end users, corporate end users, design the system and then pass it along to the proper integrators for bids and so forth. So taking nobody's value away from them, but just all the work that's already being collaborated on separately can now be done inside for efficiency. And so that's kind of our theme for the year. It's been going on in Jetbuilt for years, but we're now because we keep growing it. And so now we're really kind of doing this bridging the silos campaign. And so I think I answered all your questions and then threw my own in.
Well, that's the best part about it. And it does bring up a quick thing, which was that, we fast forwarded. We're at 2023. Fortunately, if you happen to be in Barcelona, when they come and see you, what can they expect to see at this point? From an integrator standpoint, who's going to visit you, or a consultant? From a nuts and bolts, again, it's like, here is your day. And that's sometimes where we have to relate it, where, you're sitting at the 30,000 foot view of like, here are all of the things that you could and can do. What are you finding in terms of like your use cases where this is really being applicable?
Yeah, well, going back to the bridging the silo thing, the thing that we like seeing is an end user. Let's say it's an end user. Let's say it's in a university. They've got this new building they're supposed to outfit with technology. They can go into Jetbuilt. They can throw, make a project. They specify, here's the rooms. And with room quantities, there's this floor and it's got 10 of the same room of this. And this floor has one big lecture hall, but then 2 small lecture hall, whatever it may be. They populate the rooms. They type in scopes of what they want it to do. This room needs to have this. It needs to have this. It needs to do this. And we've tried that. We want to avoid that. Let's move to this in terms of some things they've done. So they can just kind of outline their dream system. We may have X kind of budget range to spend, because clearly you can spend a little or a lot and still get, I always say, you can buy a Toyota or a Rolls Royce. They're both going to get you from here to wherever. It's just different degrees of style, functionality, and performance. And then, of course, they can drop in the floor plans. They can drop in some of the desired brands that they're used to using, that their team is used to pushing those buttons on, right? And then even drop those items in, because we've got millions of AV products. The team can start dropping in their kind of go-to items they like, drop in photos of the space, video walkthroughs, and then simply push a button, sends it to their consultant that they always use for their projects. This consultant now already has everything they need, right? That's the beauty of this. The consultant says, I get it, I know what we're doing, and now they finish it out, and they put everything in, then they can add their schematics and line drawings, and they can now push it out to 3 bidding integrators. And those integrators see it, and again, we're not talking about it all boils down to numbers here, because then Jetbuilt can help that consultant or the end user analyze these bids, not just on price, but on each value, because now the integrators returning their bid, as they always do. Jetbuilt doesn't change any of that, but returning their bid, that bid shows their values. Yep, we've done these systems, we've done that. Over there in Houston, we just did this, and it has exactly what you're looking for, and why don't you talk to so-and-so over there, and he can kind of talk about that. Point is, all of this happens every day, and now within Jetbuilt, all that data can be shared. Everything that the consultant populated and specified, along with bid requirements and everything else, those integrators can now work with. They get into their labor, their travel, there are other things that they need to get into to bring that system to life. And then also share that with the manufacturers. And now the manufacturers can look at these projects and go, you know what, I like what I'm seeing here, but you know what, we've got this brand new version of what you're putting in there. Let's move it to that, Again, so it's all of this gives the end user the best possible system they can have through this ease of collaboration. So does that describe maybe how exactly, and that's what we're showing over in our booth.
Well, you walked us exactly through it.
Okay, perfect.
So let's say we can't make it to the show. How are they going to find out more about it?
They're going to go to jetbuilt.com, jetbuilt.com. And of course, you find us on LinkedIn and Twitter and all that stuff. But jetbuilt.com, there's a big group of silos. If you're an end user, if you're an integrator, if you're a manufacturer, click on your silo, start showing you exactly how Jetbuilt can help you. And then there's videos and all sorts of stuff. And we'd be happy to then schedule a Zoom, because we're still at that half remote society. So we can schedule a Zoom and walk you through it.
Awesome. Well, Paul, as always, tons of information.
Yeah.
And again, finding out how, working your way through it. It's a pretty awesome story. So thanks for spending the time with us. If you want to find out more about Jetbuilt, you can find them on their website. If you want to find out more about our coverage of ISE 2023 here in Barcelona, you can find it on our website at AVNation.tv. This is Rich Fregosa, Uncle Richie for AVNation.tv.